Okay, so this is an old antique Gilbert. I believe it's an 8-inch fan. This thing I bought on eBay. It's a decent price, honestly, for what it is. Didn't work. It did work years ago. It was in storage, and then it didn't work. So I took a chance on it, assuming it was probably, the seller said it was most likely a wiring issue or something, and they weren't wrong. So the original cord on it was in usable condition to test it. It did have a couple breaks where I could see the bare conductor in the cord, but it is what it is. I was able to test it. What ended up happening is this really crude switch. It's a single speed unit. This really crude switch, the tab that the one wire solders to, broke off. So there was just a wire floating around in there, a live wire floating around in there, which could have been dangerous. But it wasn't touching anything. It didn't work. So I popped the base off. It has these 3D printed feet. I didn't do that. I do have a 3D printer, but I didn't print these. It came like this. I'm leaving them on. I put rubber feet on the bottom, little rubber bumpers just to cushion it. So somebody's worked on this somewhat recently. Probably in the last 15 or so years. The original cord I removed. I replaced it with a reproduction cord, very similar. Actually, the original cord's right here. I can show the color of it. Here's the original cord. So it's kind of very similar. The cord I put is brown. This one was like a greenish color, like a greenish gray. The camera's not really picking it up, but I put in a new reproduction acorn style plug on it, a white one. I ended up being able to solder a wire onto the tab, or where the tab broke off on the switch, and then attach the other wire where it actually goes. Now these switches are sketchy. This little plastic, I believe it doesn't feel like Bakelite. I don't know, maybe it's some kind of rubber, I don't know. But this, you know, if that comes off, you can't use the fan. Because under there is a metal bar, which is live. Now I connected it so that way the live goes to the contact on the switch, so when this is off, this isn't getting any power. But realistically, this switch is dangerous, and this should be grounded. In all actuality, it's not going to really get used, and I know, you know, I'm aware of it, so I'm not going to be, you know, fucking around with it. And I'm not going to leave it running unattended. I'm probably hardly ever going to use it at all. Now, AC Gilbert is the manufacturer of this. They made fans for other and small appliances for a lot of brands. They started out as a toy company and made the Erector Sets, which I had. I had both the original Erector Sets from, you know, way back then. And I also had the newer ones they make today. I forgot what company that is called. I think it starts with an M. But I did have some of the old school Erector Sets from the AC Gilbert days. And they basically took their small shaded pole induction motor that they made from the Erector Sets, from my understanding, and they decided, hey, let's put a fan blade on it and make it into a fan. So we did that, or they did that, and that's the glorious result. Now, here we go. Just a standard shaded pole motor. There's 2 coils. I replaced the head wire and heat shrunk the original wiring in the motor up to the windings, except for this one wire that goes across. I didn't touch that, and that is pressing against the case, and it always has been. And I checked the insulation. I probably should have put some Kapton tape or something over that, but I'm not opening it again. This thing's a nightmare. This thing fought me every step of the way. The bearings are, you want to call them bearings, they are, looks like a cast pot metal with a bore in it, And then on the top, there's a little tiny oil wick, and on the bottom, there's a little tiny oil cup with a wick in it. That's your bearing. There's no brass, there's no bronze, there's no oil-like bearings, there's certainly no ball bearings. It's just the metal shaft, steel shaft from the rotor, sticking through a bored-out piece of pot metal. And it's the same thing on both sides. So very cheap construction. Most of the fans that I've seen like this were a little newer, I assume, and they actually have what appears to be a proper oil-light sleeve bearing. This is a pretty early model. I'm thinking this is late 20s, maybe early 30s, but I think that's kind of pushing it. The oil-light bearings that we all know and love today were, I believe, developed by Chrysler, and I don't know if they were around at this point in time. I feel like they were, but they were probably very expensive. And if you don't know what an oil-light bearing is, it's a sintered, powdered metal sintered bearing, which means they take powdered metal, they compress it, they heat it, they fuse it together, and you end up with this porous metal that can now be put in a vacuum. It can be impregnated with oil, and then you usually wrap an oil felt or a wick or some kind of oiling system around it, so that way, as the oil dries out, or it slings out, or whatever happens to it, it pulls more oil in from a wick. That's an oil-light bearing. 99% of electric motors use that. This washing machine has oil-light bearings in the motor. The exhaust fan over there has oil-light bearings in the motor. It's just pretty much standard. And usually they were bronze or brass or a mixture of maybe sometimes copper, sometimes they're steel, whatever, but they're all made the same way. This does not have that. Like I said, it just has a bore, an oiled bore in a piece of pot metal on both sides of the motor. It has a nickel, I believe, plated steel blade. It's got some weight to it. Aside from the bearings, it's actually fairly well made, despite being a lower end model. But the bearings really let it down. So I'm going to plug it in. It's got 1 speed. The oscillator was a bit of a problem because I took it apart, took plenty of pictures of everything else, didn't take pictures of the way everything went in the oscillator. So I ended up with an extra washer, which goes up here, on top of the gear here. But it will fit over here, on this gear, under here. So I actually found a video of somebody restoring a Polar Cub, I believe, fan very similar to this. Same fan, a couple years newer with the better bearings. But otherwise it was the same, and it had the same, 99% the same oscillator, so I was able to figure out the order of that. So you gotta be careful. I kind of fucked up. I was very tired last night. The paint on this was already kind of bad on the oscillator. I think years of grease and oil and wear and tear kind of got to it. But the thing that really killed this paint, I knew it was probably going to happen. So the original grease in here was like candle wax. And it would scrape off, but it was kind of hard to get in there and get all of it off. So I used brake parts cleaner, which got pretty much all the old grease off. There's a tiny bit in there I couldn't get out. If I soaked it, I could have, but I stopped because it started bubbling the paint up real bad. But I really don't care. Like I said, the paint on this really wasn't the best anyway. I might, spray the guard here down with some black Rust-Oleum, and if I do that, I'll probably do the oscillator too. In that case, I'll soak this in brake cleaner. I used, it's over there, I'm not going to get it. I used Super Lube synthetic grease in the oscillator. Seems to work fine for this kind of stuff. So, like I said, it's only 1 speed. I'm going to turn it on. It is, gotta be careful, but it's fairly off balance. The blades were pretty out of clock when I got it. I straightened them out, but the blade isn't the best quality. The collar that the shafts, connects to the shaft with a little set screw, it's not perfectly centered in the center of the blade. So the blade's never really going to be perfectly balanced. Not without high-speed balancing it, and I'm not doing that on this. It's fine. been fine for almost 100 years. It'll be fine for the once a year I'm going to use it for a couple hours. I'll turn on the oscillation. It does bog down a tiny bit when it oscillates. Everything's very free moving, everything's clean, everything's lubricated. I think that it's just how it is. It's a small shaded pole motor. It doesn't have a lot of torque. And I think that little bit of, you know, drag on the motor is enough to cause it to fluctuate in speed. Has a bit of a rattle too. I could tweak the blades a little more, but I don't think I want to mess with it too much more. Getting this thing, since it doesn't have proper bearings, and it doesn't have, you know, self-aligning bearings, it was very annoying to get the thing so it wouldn't bind up. It has a slight spot that it does bind up a tiny bit. It's right about there. I can feel it. It's ever so slightly tighter there. You can kind of see it. And then when I get down here, it coasts a little more. It's the best I could get it. It is what it is. It's cheap. It's probably been like that since day one. To adjust the bearings to get it to not completely bind up, I had to fuck around with these. This is a rod. It's a threaded rod that goes through the back case, goes through the stator, goes through both bearing assemblies. Same thing with the bottom. Now, take that nut off. The cover will come off. There's another nut, and then there's the bracket for the, you know, the bearing assembly. Same as the front. Has the same thing on the back. It just screws onto the oscillator from the inside. That was annoying because they're not self-aligning and there is a tiny bit of play, so I had to play with the tightness of these bolts, play with the tightness of the front bolts. It's the same design. There's a nut here and a washer that holds the guard on. Then there's another nut under there that holds the front cover on. Then there's one more nut under there that holds the bearing on. I had to play with it a lot. And I got it to a point where I think I'm happy with this. So I think we're going to be good with that. The oil cups I cleaned out. I put new felt in it. The back one is not really well designed. It's set in there. And you can get it in externally, but you really can't get a screwdriver to tighten it. So I'm not 100% sure it's all the way in. I have to check that. I didn't realize that until it was back together and I was not taking that motor cover back off. Anyway, so I ran a new head wire. It is what it is. It's a cute little fan. I like it. It's not going to be, you know, a regular runner. It's one of those things that looks cool and it's nice that it works and I want it to be usable, but I'm not going to use it a whole lot. These old fans are honestly kind of dangerous. These motors are not thermally protected. Don't even think it's impedance protected. You can stick your fingers right in there. If you hit the front of the blade, it's just going to throw your hand out. If you hit the back, the leading edge of the blade, you can get chopped. This thing's not going to take your finger off. I really don't think it has enough torque and enough inertia to do that. But it'll still give you a nice cut. I wouldn't be sticking fingers into it. Put a new fiber washer there. The original fiber washer's in between there. It's fine. This one cracked. It is what it is. It's a cool little fan. It looks nice. It's kind of creepy looking, actually. Maybe I'll repaint the front grille and the badge. I can do that. That's not too hard. But it'll be fine. I mean, it works. I'm just not going to use it. It's not going to be a regular runner. But, you know, it's nice that it's working again, and it is totally usable. Anyway, thanks for watching. Oh, wait, let me get a shot of the bottom first. There's the data tag. And then the speaker just turned itself off. Alright, well, that's it. Thanks for watching.